Good morning. I'm Greg Longini of the Transit Board Secretary's Office. On May 5th, 2022, the Board Office issued a notice of change format of meeting of Committees of Human Resources and Finance. I'm Greg Longini of the Board meeting scheduled for May 11th, Board Secretary's Office due to COVID-19 pandemic. There is currently in effect a statewide disaster declaration as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been renewed from month to month since the start of the pandemic. Pursuant to Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act, virtual public meetings are permitted while the disaster proclamation remains in effect. Because of the governor's disaster proclamation remains in effect in the state of Illinois, the meetings of May 11th, 2022 are being held electronically or virtually for members of the public. With that, we can begin the meetings today. The Committee on Human Resources. Chairman Miller.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the May 11, 2022 meeting of the Committee on Human Resource. Greg, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Barkley.
Here.
Director Jakes will not be here today. Chairman Miller.
Here.
We have a quorum with 3 members of the committee present, sir.
Thank you. On the agenda for today's meeting, a presentation of CTA hiring presented by Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Tom McCone. Mr. McCone.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and other directors. I'm Tom McCone, Chief Administrative Officer. I'm here to provide a hiring update as was discussed at the last board meeting. So with that, I'll go through a set of slides and then we're going to play a video at the end. So you can go to the next slide. As background, CTA has approximately 10,000 employees. The number varies typically between 10,000 and 11,000 employees. The vast majority of these employees are essential workers and frontline workers who provide service to our customers. We use Taleo for talent acquisition purposes. Our frequently filled positions are posted on transitchicago.com. And Taleo manages the full process for our candidates, providing updates to them, and manages the process through to hiring. Typically, we hire between 1,000 and 1,200 employees annually to come work at CTA. Once they're posted and available, they're marketed through a variety of partners. And part of that marketing includes a focus on the strong benefits that we provide, especially for some of our key positions, a paid training period for non-CDL holders, along with the other suite of benefits that are available to all of our employees. And you'll see that featured through a number of our recruiting and marketing efforts. You can go to the next slide. So when the pandemic hit, it had a number of impacts on our workforce and our recruiting efforts. And I want to talk a little bit about those because CTA as an employer is no different than other employers in the industry and the market as a whole. We did see an increase in turnover or attrition during the Great Resignation, no different than any other transit agency or any other employer has been seeing. So we did note that. And it's also been an unprecedented labor market. We have seen a decrease in interest across the board as measured by the number of applications that we're receiving for the positions that we're posting. And again, this is no different than any other employer that you talk to or meet with, or any number of our peers in the transit industry. And this is demonstrated by the decrease that we did see in applications from 2019 to 2021. In addition, we've had an increase in workforce unavailability due to illness and other causes. Notably, during the most recent Omicron surge, we had a market increase in absenteeism due to folks contracting the illness and not being available to work. That has continued throughout the pandemic. Obviously, it ebbs and flows as the pandemic does, but we've seen an increase in that unavailability rate in our workforce. And a lot of our support functions have been impacted by some of these workforce impacts as well. You wouldn't normally think about it until it's not there and not working. But for instance, for our bus operator positions, we require them to have a CDL permit to start training. That permit's not available if they can't go to the facility to acquire it. And as you know, and as recently as earlier this year, those licensing facilities were closed. They were closed as a result of the pandemic and safety precautions that were taken, but that had an impact on our pipeline and our ability to bring in the workforce. We've seen it in other areas, such as our background check processing, where they might not have the workforce available to go through the files that were required as part of our background check procedure. So we've been impacted by these slowdowns in some of these support functions, and that has led to a decrease in the number of folks that we were able to hire initially at the start of the pandemic. And since then, we've made adjustments so that these some of these issues are not as challenging as they have been in the past. If you go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about the industry and what we're seeing within the industry and industry impacts. So the American Public Transportation Association did a survey of over 100 public transit agencies at the start of this year. CTA actually participated in this survey as well. And they published a study about a month ago on workforce shortages impacting public transportation. And I've listed here some of the key takeaways from their report. 92% of agencies stated that they're having difficulty hiring new employees, and employees in bus operations are the most challenging to find. 66% of agencies reported having difficult retaining employees. So this is the attrition note that I made earlier. And over half of agencies have increased their starting pay in response to some of these worker shortage issues. And no doubt you'll remember in February when we ratified the collective bargaining agreement, this did increase the wages across the board for our workers and has helped to address some of the shortages and challenges that we're seeing there. Below this, I've also listed what was in the report, which is a ranking of the most difficult positions to fill. So again, this is across the transit industry. And what you'll see here is that bus operations is ranked as the #1 most difficult to fill position currently within the industry. Bus maintenance is #2, and then you can see the ranking down there through the top 7 positions that were ranked. And I would say that CTA is no different in sort of ranking that bus operations position as the top impacted position that we're seeing right now. So if we go from the industry, we can talk a little bit about the positions at CTA, and you'll recognize some of these names and what they're associated with in terms of the service we deliver. We actually have had relatively good success, I'll knock on wood as I say that, in filling some of our mechanic positions and some of our support positions on the rail side. So you'll see bus mechanic up there, hiring in the baseline year of 2019 of 30. Last year, we actually hired 43 into that position. So we've been able to maintain on a position like bus mechanic, bus servicer. Those are the employees who clean the vehicles. Customer service assistant is our main entry point on the rail system. Track worker and flagger are also entry positions on the rail system. And you'll see that there was a dip across the board for most of these positions in 2020, the initial year of the pandemic, and then a pretty good recovery in 2021. So last year we were able to resume those hiring rates in a lot of positions. The one notable position that was lagging is the bus operator position, and this would be the part-time bus operator position. The year 2019 is typical of what we'd look to hire in a standard year for bus operators, about 15 every 2 weeks to help maintain our pool of bus operators, and you'll see that dropped in 2020 like the other positions did. And then we were able to tick back up in 2021, but not quite to the level that we'd like it to be at. So if you go to the next page, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the improvements we're making and how we're kind of turning the corner on addressing some of the challenges that we've had in filling some of those positions. So in terms of the process, we've moved it entirely online. So from application to testing to interviews to the record review, everything is done, and Taleo is sort of the entry point for that. We're doing all of that processing of talent acquisition, and it's a faster process from start to finish. There's more transparency and visibility in the process, and it gives the candidates more control over the process. They can self-schedule their interviews. They can self-schedule their other pre-employment appointments. We've integrated the scheduling with Concentra for their medical exams and medical reviews so that they can self-schedule that, allowing the candidate to schedule this, to control it at their own pace, and to move more quickly through the process. We automatically update candidates when their status changes, so they get that via email. We've integrated with HireRight, which is our background check company. This allows motor vehicle records to come back almost instantaneously. And this is free to the candidate. Normally, or in other positions, you may see they require candidates to show up with their motor vehicle record, and this usually costs them. They have to retrieve it. It takes time to do that. We do that for free for the candidate and virtually instantaneously. We do video interviews for our positions, and this has greatly increased the availability of our candidates and also our interview panels. Our managers work throughout the city. Oftentimes it's challenging for them to get to a central location and to conduct interviews all day. The video interviews have made it much more accessible, not only for our candidates, but for our managers as well. Our postings are automatically posted with partner organizations such as Indeed or Diversity Jobs. And then we do our assessments online. So we moved from a few years ago, pre-pandemic, it would not be uncommon to find folks at our headquarters location taking a test, a 3-hour test using a Scantron sheet for some of our positions. We've been able to move that all online so that candidates can perform their assessments online, sort of on their own schedule. And that's increased not only the number of assessments that we've been able to do, but our retention rate for our candidates through the process. If we go next, we can talk about some of the position enhancements that we've made. So almost to a person, what we were hearing from the bus operators that we were recruiting and also what we were hearing in the exit interviews that we were conducting is that the part-time bus operator position was not competitive within the marketplace for CDL holders, and that what they were looking for is a full-time position. So when we would conduct exit interviews with our part-time bus operators as they submitted their resignation, they said they were looking for a full-time job. They were looking for a full-time position. Again, almost to a person as they were exiting the agency. So we focused on directly recruiting a full-time position, and with the collective bargaining agreement that's in place now, we're able to do that. So we're recruiting full-time operators directly and closing that gap and sort of meeting the marketplace where the marketplace currently is. As soon as that contract was approved, we posted the position. We launched a career fair. We had over 300 people in attendance at that career fair, and I'm happy to report that our first class started yesterday, and we had almost a full class of 30. We had 29 trainees enter training, and they're set to graduate in the month of June. In addition, we've expanded the flexibility to use retired bus operators so that they can work on weekends and then Fridays and Mondays to help fill some of the part-time work. So we're actively recruiting recently retired CTA bus operators to come back and support our efforts there. We also have a short-term agreement with our union partners to employ retired rail instructors. And the first of them actually started coming on board right at the end of October of last year to help augment our training efforts on the rail instruction side. We've got 9 of them currently working, providing rail instruction and helping to supplement that workforce. And then the last position that I'll note here is updating the customer service assistant position. This is the entry point to our rail operations positions. Previously, they could not select a schedule that was more than 32 hours. Again, we know that the workforce is looking for full-time positions. So in the collective bargaining agreement, we removed that cap so that now they can select a full-time schedule and work a full-time schedule rather than having to submit to a previous cap of a part-time schedule at 32 hours. And that's going to help not only with the recruitment, but also with the retention side of things. So if we go to the next page, we'll talk a little bit about our recruitment and hiring initiatives. So we've restructured to focus on increasing marketing and marketing our positions. We're holding monthly career fairs and rotating the focus of those career fairs. You'll see a couple of advertisements on the right-hand side for some of those recent career fairs that we've held. We're also presenting to some of our organizational partners. So not directly to job candidates, but to those organizations that serve job candidates and serve potential employees, so that we can help familiarize them with the process, what's required in various phases of the process, and help dispel some of the myths that may be out there about working at CTA. So we look to do that a couple of times a month to help inform our partners so that they can better inform the clients that they're working with about the opportunities at CTA and how to successfully complete that process. We participate in a career fair almost any time that it comes along. So we attended 36 events in 2021 to talk about various opportunities. We focused on our capital campaigns last year. As you know, we've ramped up our capital programs and our capital projects, and we filled close to 300 positions associated with those. And at the bottom here, I've just note the overall hiring progress that we've made across all of our positions. So in 2019, again, baseline year pre-pandemic, we hired 1,170 employees. During the pandemic year, that dropped off, but 2021 showed a robust recovery with 1,222 hires. We're well on track in 2022, reporting results through the first quarter, and we expect to see these numbers increase throughout the year. If we go to the next page. To get into some of the specifics about how we're marketing these jobs and to highlight some of the creative things that we're doing and we're sharing with the rest of the industry as well. We're undertaking efforts to reach a broad set of communities and market our opportunities. We're taking full advantage of the system and using the advertisement placements that are made available on the system, including sort of both inside rail cars and buses, and on the outside as well, taking advantage of the side of the bus to market opportunities to anybody who may see the bus coming by. In addition, we've had radio ads promoting our CTA career fairs. These radio ads have been multilingual. They've not only been in English, but they've also been in Spanish and in Polish. We've had communications also in Chinese when we've had printed posters. And I'm going to show you a couple examples of those as well. In addition, we've been using social media aggressively, Facebook, LinkedIn, and others to promote our jobs, to promote our career fairs and interest in those. We've also partnered with our union partners throughout the year to have job fairs jointly with them to help reach a broader base of potential applicants for our jobs. If you go to the next page, I'll go through some of the marketing and some of the history and kind of highlight some of what we focus on as part of our advertising. So going back to 2020, you can see some of our historic advertising on the right-hand side of this page, focusing again on the bus operator position, dispelling the myth that you need to have a CDL to apply for the job or even to get hired, which is not true. So we see a call out there that the CDL is not required to apply, highlighting some of what we heard are the top reasons to become an operator, and highlighting both the benefits to the individual, but also the benefits that employees tell us they get in terms of providing service to the riding public and in working with their other employees here at CTA. And then you'll see some of the ads that we've been putting forward to directly address some of our competitors, focusing on delivery drivers, rideshare drivers, and the benefits that we offer in terms of a stable career, strong benefits that we have at CTA for those folks who are interested in driving and trying to move them from being a rideshare driver into being a bus operator. You can see on the next page, more of that Better on the Bus campaign, which we ran throughout 2021. And then some of our seasonal advertising efforts where we tried to capture people as they might have been in seasonal jobs and what those careers might look like at CTA. So a seasonal delivery driver might be interested in being a bus operator. Somebody who works in retail could focus on being a customer service assistant. So focusing on those entry points and then really the benefits that come with working at CTA and having that sort of stable long-term career opportunity with CTA. And then the launch of our full-time bus operator campaign. So if you go to the next page, to see some of those seasonal ads and the results that we saw from those. Again, those were launched at the end of last year and the start of this year. Again, saying, hey, now that you're done with your seasonal opportunity, come on and look for a long-term career with CTA. Strong response to that in terms of our career fair participation and our reach on social media. And if we move from there, I'll highlight our full-time bus operator campaign on the next page. You can see examples of those ads. Again, you can see some of the multiple languages that we're putting these ads out in. You can see the ad on the side of the bus to catch people not only as they're inside the bus, but as they might be seeing the outside of the bus, just focusing on the fact that, now we're hiring full-time bus operators. And this is, for the first time ever, a full-time entry-level opportunity on the bus side. So, and despite the headwinds that we talked about earlier in terms of the market and the marketplace, this is really helping us to turn the corner on our recruiting efforts and help to fill some of those gaps that we saw that were created by the pandemic. So we've been pleased with the response so far to this campaign and to the changes to the position. We've had a strong set of job applicants. We had a full class starting just this week for the full-time operator position. And we're always looking for ways to enhance it, to streamline our process, to find ways to help people more successfully navigate the process, and to find ways in which we can make this better. So this is not the end. We're not going to rest here. We're going to focus on continuing to fill these positions and to create these opportunities for the workforce. If we go to the next page, at the end of this, we'll show you a video, but I also want to give you a preview of the upcoming campaign. So if you go to the next page here, the upcoming campaign is going to focus pictures of our employees, the I Clean It, I Fix It, I Drive It campaign, and picture yourself at CTA. So you can see the little Polaroids here where we'll have pictures of employees who are performing those functions to help kind of humanize, what it means, so people could see themselves working at CTA in various functions, and promoting that, right? Promoting sort of the people and the personal level of the jobs and of the opportunity at CTA. And we're looking forward to launching this campaign this summer. And really sort of continuing to build our brand and to promote the CTA workforce opportunities. So with that, we do have a 30-second video that's up on our website. It's been promoted on social media. I do want to show that as well. It is, Herb's going to pull it up here. You can find this on transitchicago.com/careers, where we have our job postings as well. Go ahead, Herb.
Shift your career into gear. The Chicago Transit Authority now has full-time bus operator careers available. If you've been waiting for a full-time opportunity, today is your day. CTA offers paid training to help you earn your commercial driver's license. We also offer excellent pay and benefits, including medical, dental, and retirement. The door is open for you. Don't delay. Start your full-time bus operator career today. To apply, visit transitchicago.com.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Let the record show that Director Ortiz has also joined the proceedings. Chairman Miller, any questions or comments?
No question. Good presentation. Thank you.
Greg,
I'm sorry.
before you take questions, let me just say something in summary to
Sure.
what you all have heard here. And I know we've given you a lot of information. I was concerned that, we're overwhelming you with all the stuff that we're doing, but it occurred to me that in all the time that I've been here at CTA, we have never really briefed the board on what our hiring process is or how we're engaging in it. And it is such a critical component to our success on everything else that we do that I wanted them to at least give you this kind of an overview. If there are things out of this presentation you'd like to hear more about or like us to dive deeper into, let us know. We can then focus our presentation on those particular items or issues. But this is really intended just to give you overall understanding of what's going on at CTA, clearly the challenges that we face as a result of the pandemic, and certainly the new strategies we put in place to basically try to improve our recruitment and to, increase our flexibility in terms of the way that we hire people to take advantage of the reality of social distancing that we're dealing with right now.
Thank you. No question.
Director Barkley?
Yeah, I do have a comment. First, thank you for bringing us up to date on the hiring efforts. I went out to the garage a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that a couple of drivers said that they had people who were referring to seek full-time employment at CTA. And given the nature of the competition with the CDL license, school bus drivers, Uber drivers, everybody's trying to basically get in. They basically said that the process in terms of the background check takes a lot of time. How have you streamlined the background check so that we can be competitive, so that we can get an employee before someone else grabs that person?
Yeah, so as I noted at the top, we have seen delays, right? COVID impacted delays from our background check providers. And we use multiple providers to make sure we have a full sense of everyone's background. For the bus operator position specifically, we've begun to bring people on a contingent basis. So if things start to get delayed, we make sure that we can bring them on board and have them as employees, even as we're finishing the background check process. In addition, the background check, we have a background check review and a review committee. They've been meeting more frequently to make sure that we're speeding up any reviews that have to take place as part of the background check process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Silva?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
I'm not in this committee, but I would like to highlight 2 points, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you again for the broad overview. I know these are hard times to really bring on board exceptional partners to be part of our team. Just on 2 thoughts on the last part of the presentation in terms of ads. I wonder if your marketing team is thinking through diversity within your strategy. One of the things that impacted me on the slides is, I fix it and I drive it, which makes a lot of sense, but I clean it. I'm not so sure how many people would want to sign up and say, hey, feature me and I clean these buses, knowing that some of them are just hard to engage with. So I just, if you want to think through that and make sure your team is thinking through the putting on the hat of the other people on the other side who we want to target and bring on board. The benefits piece, I think, would be a great attraction to people, and just really thinking about the audience that we're trying to capture and what would be really comfortable and exciting for them to join us. Last but not least, I think at the end of the video, if you want to take a look at that video again at the very end, if you want to think through the lens of diversity, how does that portray it? How can it be enhanced? I did actually really like the ads that had different colors in the background and had the different splits. But that final image on that video, I'm not sure really captures that diversity as well. So I welcome you to take a look at it with your team and just make sure that we're trying to get a broad breadth of our top talents in the city to really join us and be part of our team. So thank you.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Director Ortiz, one of the things that we can also give a more detailed presentation on is what our recruitment efforts are around diversity, how we engage the various communities here in the city to directly recruit from them. It is an issue that not only you have raised, but that elected officials raise with us on a regular basis. We have a fairly extensive level of engagement that is targeted and focused on various communities here in Chicago, and we can have Tom and his team put together a more detailed presentation on that.
That'd be great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're doing that. Just wanted to know.
Yeah, it is a challenge. You're absolutely right to point that out, and obviously we're always looking for ways that we can improve upon that. But it is a concern of ours. Clearly we want the agency to reflect the diversity of the city that we serve. We are a very diverse workforce, but we could be better, and we talk about that a lot. An awful lot. Tom knows that he and I have regular conversations about what we can do to improve on that. And clearly, if any of the members of the board have other ideas of things that they think we should be doing, other ways we can engage, we'd be happy to hear that. And more importantly, we'll put together a more detailed presentation that just focuses on that aspect of the recruiting process.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Miller, we're finished with all the issues.
Thank you so much, and Tom, for that presentation. Since there's no further business to come before the committee, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Chairman Miller and Director Barkley. Director Silva?
Yes.
Director Barkley?
Yes.
Chairman Miller?
Yes.
We are adjourned with all three members voting to adjourn. We can now move on to the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee meeting. Chairman Silva.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the May 11, 2022 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. The Secretary call the roll.
Yes, Director Ortiz,
Here.
Director Barkley,
Here.
Director Miller,
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
Directors Irvine and Jakes will not be with us today, so we have a quorum with four members of the committee present, sir.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes, April 2022. May I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Director Miller? Director Miller on the motion?
Yes.
Yes. Director Barkley?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes is approved with 4 yes votes. We proceed to number 3.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be going over results for the month of March as well as year-to-date numbers. On the next page, we see March revenues. They're following a similar form of what we've seen over the first couple of months of the year, where we see farebox totals slightly positive to budget, passes slightly down to budget based on spreads. But overall, we're essentially flat, slightly down to what we had expected in the budget. More importantly, though, is the variance to this time last year. So variance to March of 2021, we're almost $8 million to the positive. Reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected, albeit at lower amounts due to prior haircuts from the state. Non-fare box totals continue to come in slightly positive to budget by about $400,000, a little over $1 million to March of last year. So overall, for the month of March, we end up essentially flat, slightly positive by $100,000 for the month of March, but almost $9 million of positive variance to March of 2021. On the next page, you see year-to-date numbers. Again, following a similar form, you see fare and pass totals down, but essentially flat, but down by about $700,000, but over $18 million positive to this time last year. Reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected. Non-fare box totals coming in essentially flat, slightly positive to the budget, but over $1.5 million positive to this time last year. So overall, revenues year to date through the first quarter are essentially flat, slightly down by about $600,000, but almost $20 million of positive variance to the first quarter of last year. On the next page, we see our expense numbers for March. We see positive variance by about $9.5 million for labor, down about $650,000 for material based on timing. Fuel is essentially flat, but slightly down due to the impact of spot portion of that buy. And then power, we're positive by about $900,000. Injuries and damages essentially flat. Security services positive by almost $450,000. And other expenses continues to be a strong performer of about $6.6 million of favorable variance for the month of March. So we end up the month of March favorable on our expenses by $16.8 million. Net of revenue, we're $16.9 million to the positive for the month of March. On the next page, we see year-to-date numbers for expenses, positive across the board. You see total operating expenses of $13.2 million, favorable to budget on expenses alone. Net of revenues, we're about $32.6 million to the positive. So again, for the first quarter of the year, very favorable results with regard to our system-generated revenues and expenses. With regard to our public funding, we see this on the next couple of pages. For the monthly collections, this is this first page, we see positive variance for sales tax by about $3.4 million for the collections attributed to January of 22. PTF for April of 22 were about $3.5 million to the positive. The RET for March of 22, about $1.6 million. And then PTF on RET and ICE funding coming in almost $1 million to the positive for their respective months. So we have, for the monthly collections, positive favorable variance of $9.4 million for public funding. On the next page, you see the year-to-date numbers. And again, dropping to the bottom line here, for the collections so far for the year, we see about $26 million of positive variance for public funding. On the next page, you see federal relief funding draws. We have listed out the 4 pots of federal relief funding that we've received: CARES, CRISA, ARP, and ARP discretionary. The ARP discretionary, should be noted, has been announced but not yet executed. So we've not yet started drawing down on that. CARES, as we've talked about in prior months, has been fully drawn down, so far. So now we've turned our attention to drawing down against CRISA and ARP funding, and we'll start drawing down against ARP discretionary once that grant is executed. But in the meantime, what we're doing is we're drawing down in a pro rata fashion on a monthly basis against the active grants. So in this case, we're drawing down about $3 million, a little bit more, 3.3 of CRISA and about 9.2 of ARP. We will continue to do so in the coming months and years as we need to make draws. We'll keep all 3 grants active on a monthly basis. That would be CRISA, ARP, and ARP discretionary, so that we have activity against all 3 grants on a going forward basis. Again, that helps us signify how critical and how necessary each of those grants are to the federal government as we continue to move forward. On the next page, we talk about our commodities, fuel, power, and natural gas. Fuel, we're locked in, for 2023 of about 50%. We were actually able over the last couple of days to make some additional purchases, which we'll talk about next month for 23 and 4. But for the report here, we have about half of what we need for 23 already locked in, and about 10% for 24 and 5. So again, we'll continue to make selective opportunities to buy more of those future, volume needs as prices relax occasionally. But obviously, it's a very volatile market. But we have been very successful in our plan to kind of incrementally buy along the way when prices do relax, temporarily. But again, we're keeping an eye on that daily. Power and natural gas, we're locked into where we need to be for the foreseeable future, but we'll continue to look for selective opportunities there as well. That completes the FAB report for the month of March. Glad to answer any questions.
Are we achieving what we are expecting from the public collection that we have here in the Illinois area?
Yes, so public funding in general has been very good, exceeding budgeted expectations through the first quarter of the year, both in terms of our sales tax, our public funding from PTF and RET. So again, it's been a strong first quarter. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the larger, economy. We continue to keep an eye on that. But for the first quarter of 2022, it's been a very positive year in terms of public funding.
And we are expecting the federal relief funding to continue for this year.
So the federal relief funding, comes in those 4 grants, as I previously mentioned. We expect to draw down those funds as part of, what we discussed in the 22 budget, what we'll talk about here in a moment with regard to the amendment of the 22 budget. But we expect to use those funds, for any gaps that would be for 22, 23, and 24. And we'll talk about that more in a moment on the amendment. But again, those funds are available for current year shortfalls as well as any future year shortfalls, as long as those remain, available and in existence that we haven't drawn down. So those will be, available as we move forward as well.
Can you talk a little bit, okay, about how our position in gas futures?
Sure. So, we have been very successful in locking in, lower pricing through, the help of our fuel advisors at Amoresco. We've been able to lock in essentially at $2 a gallon for 2022, about $2.70 a gallon for 2023, $2.63 for 24, and about $2.25 for 25. So, again, we look for selective opportunities to buy. Obviously, prices have gone up considerably. You probably see that at the pump, but there's a couple of things to our advantage. One is that the blend of diesel that we're buying is a bit cheaper than what you see with regard to unleaded gas at the pump. And particularly if you were buying premium. But if you also buy out in the future, like we are for 23, 4, and 5, those years are continuing to come in at a slight discount to spot pricing. So, we continue to look for selective opportunities, to buy additional volume for those outer years. We've been fairly successful in that endeavor heretofore, but, again, it's a very volatile market, very rocky market. So we're just looking for selective windows when prices fall to make additional purchases for those outer years. The good news is that we do have some continued time on our side for 24 and 5. 23, we would like to get locked in, before the budget cycle, ends. But again, we still have some time there as well. So we're using that to our advantage to, again, make selective opportunities when prices avail themselves.
Director Silva,
Thank you.
just one more point I want to clarify from what Jeremy said. And it's important to keep in mind that the reason we're engaging in this strategy is twofold. One is what Jeremy is mentioning, which is we're able to lock in prices at a discounted rate, much lower than what you would get on the market if you were going to your gas station and buying gas. But the other point, which is also just as important to us, is budget stability. So the more that we lock this in, the more we can budget to a particular price in our annual budgets. And clearly, fuel is a significant portion of our budget expense. So even if we are paying more than, say, next year than we're paying this year, we still get the benefit of knowing that our prices for that fuel are not going to go skyrocketing up and down all year long, which would just play havoc with our overall budget. So I just want to point out the secondary purpose for why we do this, which is not necessarily tied to the cost savings, but tied to budgetary, certainty.
We're not openly, playing the market,
No, we're not speculating. If that's what you're referring to, this is a very industry accepted practice. A lot of other transit systems do the same thing, or basically anyone in the transportation industry that has the need to purchase a significant amount of fuel, would be the airlines, something like that, all engaged in this process. So we're not out here trying to make money off of this or anything like that. We're really just trying to take advantage of volume discounts with advanced purchases that allow us to stabilize our budget going forward.
Thank you.
Excuse me, before we proceed, I've just been informed that Director Jakes of the committee is joining the proceedings virtually.
Thank you.
Director Barkley, any?
Just one comment, Jeremy. I'm encouraged by the steady improvement of fare revenues. We've seen the increase there from last year. And then with the hopes that this summer it's going to improve even greater now that the festival season will open up. So we're anxiously awaiting those results as well.
Thank you. We are too, but it's encouraging so far.
Director Miller?
No, I have no additional questions. Thank you.
Director Ortiz?
No additional questions. Thank you.
Is Director Jakes available to? No?
I have no questions, Greg.
Okay, thank you, Director Jakes. We're finished with all the issues on that item number 3, Chairman Silver. I'm going to move to number 4 now.
The next order of business is to review an ordinance adopting an amended budget for calendar year 2022, an amended financial plan for calendar years 2023 and 2024. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'm here today to present an ordinance amending the 2022 operating budget and the 2023 and 24 financial plans as required by the RTA to reflect increased public funding marks and to incorporate the American Rescue Plan, known as ARP, funds allocated by RTA in November, as well as the discretionary ARP funds awarded to CTA in March. The amended 2022 budget also includes actual information and system-generated revenue results for January through March, but is otherwise unchanged. In addition, the RTA has reduced the required recovery ratio from 54.75% to 42% for tracking purposes, but we continue to have a waiver from the state legislature through 2023. RTA approved revised marks at their April 2022 board meeting. The CTA public funding is projected to be $1 billion, which is about 80 million higher than originally budgeted for in 2022. The revised budget also incorporates the $912.1 million of ARP funds allocated to CTA and the $118.4 million of ARP discretionary funds awarded. CTA was the only service board in the region eligible to apply for the competitive grant based on expending of CARES funds. The amended budget also shows system-generated revenues relatively flat to the original budget, down $600,000, and the operating expenses $33 million lower than the original budget, primarily due to favorable labor expense in the first quarter of 2022. As a result of the increased public funding marks and favorable expenses, CTA is able to reduce the expected federal relief funds needed for 2022 from $456 million to $343 million. We previously estimated that the federal relief funds would last us through mid-2024, and we are currently estimating funds to last through early 2025. With this amendment, the overall 2022 operating budget is decreased from $1.747 billion to $1.714 billion. This concludes my presentation, and I'm glad to answer any questions. Greg, I think that you may be on mute.
Director Jakes, any questions?
No questions, Greg.
All right, Chairman Silver, all questions are finished on this matter.
And our next order of business,
Chairman Silver, we need to get this on the omnibus.
may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We may proceed to number 5, Chairman.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an amendment to a list of retail space and license agreements for basement space and adjacent property located at 4620 North Broadway, Chicago, Illinois, red line.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I present for your consideration an ordinance authorizing the amendment to the lease and license agreement with Chicago Cooperative, trade name Chicago Market, at the Gerber Building adjacent to the Wilson Station. The lease with Chicago Market for a grocery co-op and accompanying license agreement for the basement and adjacent under L parking area were originally executed in May of 2018. The proposed amendment to the lease and accompanying license agreements will provide Chicago Market more time and flexibility to build out and operate successfully in the space. This amendment includes a new rent commencement date of June 1, 2024, a rent abatement estimated to be approximately $208,000 in exchange for Chicago Market taking over necessary remediation work to the basement the expanded use of the basement space at a rent of $1 per square foot, and an extension to the 7 months at the end of the lease base term to offset the rent abatement. The amendment also introduces milestones towards the design and build out of the Chicago market that it must meet, which will help ensure they stay on schedule going forward. Starting annual rent for the building will remain unchanged at $238,000 and $302. And the total value to the CTA for the 10-year base term remains $2.73 million. This concludes my presentation, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
All the questions are finished, Chairman Silva.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We may proceed to number 6, Chairman.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an additional experimental University Pass, UPass program agreement with the University of Illinois at Chicago for certain part-time students for fall 2022 and spring 2023. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today for your consideration and similar to the board approval for the summer of 22 semester last month, I present a proposal for an extension of the University of Illinois at Chicago, known as UIC, part-time UPass experimental program for the fall of 2022, spring of 2023, and summer of 2023 academic terms. Per this pilot program, the graduate and undergraduate part-time students taking between 8 and 11 credit hours shall receive a UPass. UIC participated in previous UPass pilots during the 2020, 2021, 2021, 2022 academic years, which were both successful even in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pilot program allows the part-time UIC students to be eligible to receive UPasses if they opt into the program. UIC will pay CTA the daily per student rate per term of $1.25 per the general UPass agreement, and this cost is passed through to the students. At the conclusion of the experimental program, CTA will review the ridership of the part-time UPasses issued and make a comparison to the revenue earned to make a recommendation as to the potential permanency of this part-time UPass program with the new 5-year UPass contracts that will be in effect starting August 2023. This concludes my presentation, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Are we gaining some UPasses, or are we trying to get what we used to have before?
So with regard to the participating schools, we have actually gained three new UPass participants in the program. So that's great news in a very tough market in general with regard to higher education and just the impact on the pandemic there. So we're very excited about that. The student participation in the program, or just ridership in general, tracks some of the ebbs and flows and ridership in general on the CTA. So again, we're starting to see, as we're starting to see ridership in general coming back, we're also seeing ridership on the UPasses picking up as well. But again, the modifications that we made last month, as well as the modifications that are before you today, to continue to provide the flexibility for the opt-in aspect of the program, has allowed us to maintain the current cohort of about 70 schools, as well as add to that stable of schools. So as well as just allow for students to start coming back to classroom settings and additional ridership related to that. So this has been a very successful program for us, and we're continuing to see progress on ridership here, and also maintaining the stable of schools as well as expanding it. So this has been a very good program for us and the schools and the students participating.
So we should expect to keep going up.
Yeah. So again, we're seeing continued increasing ridership, just kind of across the board, and this program is no different than that. We're continuing to see improvements on ridership throughout the program.
Yeah.
Director Barkley,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Director Ortiz?
No questions, thank you.
There are no, I'm sorry. There are no further questions on this matter, Chairman Silva.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second,
We may now proceed to, been moved and seconded, we may proceed to number 6, Chairman.
Number 7.
Number 7.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an additional experimental UPass program agreement with City Colleges of Chicago for certain part-time students for fall 2022 and spring 2023 terms. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today for your consideration and similar to the UIC ordinance previously presented, I present a proposal for an extension of the City Colleges of Chicago part-time UPass pilot program for the fall of 22, spring of 23, and summer of 23 academic terms. Per this experimental program, selected part-time City College students taking between 9 and 11 credit hours are eligible to receive a UPass. The initial City College part-time experimental program was implemented in the fall of 2018 and extended. This pilot program allows eligible part-time City College students to receive UPasses the same as previous agreements if they opt in. City colleges will pay CTA the daily per student rate per term of $1.25 per the general UPass agreement. And at the conclusion of this experimental program, CTA will review the ridership of the part-time UPasses issued and make a comparison to the revenue earned to make a recommendation as to the potential permanency of the part-time UPass model with the new 5-year UPass contracts that will go into effect in August of 2023. This concludes my presentation, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
No further questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
can you clarify something? For the other piece, it said that the cost went back to the students and it was regardless of whether they use it or not. For those that do use it, is the cost actually lower through this program than if they were doing it on their own?
Yeah, so Director, the both programs are currently opt-in programs, as the larger program at large, the UPass program at large for full-time is also opt-in. To your question, yes, this is a significant discount. It's about half of what a 30-day pass, an unlimited 30-day pass would cost. So this is, a good pricing point for students to be able to access the system as they would through that 30-day pass option at a discount. But again, what it has done in the past and has been basically modeled has become a model for other transit agencies around the country, is that that this really incentivizes folks to ride the system, and because school, hours are different. They're kind of riding throughout the day, and they become accustomed to the system so that when they become employed after their education, that they continue to be riders. And again, this has been a very successful program that's been replicated around the country because of the success that we've seen here in Chicago.
Yes, so I am a fan of the program, which is why I also wanted to clarify that it's a benefit all around, and I'm just continue to be super excited for the program and expansions of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Jakes, any questions? Jakes?
No questions, Greg, and I'm getting ready to go through airport security, so I may have to log off and log back in.
All right, thank you, sir. Chairman, so there's no further questions on this matter.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second,
Moved by Director Miller, second by Director Ortiz. We may move to number 8 now, Chairman.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an amendment to University Pass, UPass, to allow incentive pricing enrollment flexibility for the 2022-2023 academic year. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today for your consideration, I present a proposal to offer tiered pricing and continued flexibility of certain UPass contract provisions due to the lasting effects of the COVID-19 pandemic through the 2022-2023 academic year. Similar to the board approval for the summer of 22 semester last month, this ordinance continues the flexibility of certain UPass contract provisions due to the lasting effects of the COVID pandemic through the 22-23 academic year. Colleges and universities have experienced unique and lasting enrollment changes since March of 2020. In-person enrollment continues to be reduced since the onset of the pandemic, and remote classes will continue to be a mode of learning in many instances. Offering enhanced flexibility terms to participating schools will allow continued school participation and allow students to maximize access to the use of CTA services. In addition to the continued flexibility through the final year of the current contract, the ordinance proposes allowing incentive pricing to colleges and universities based on enrollment levels. As these schools have been valued partners of CTA for the past several years, and to encourage schools to enroll 100% of their eligible students in UPass, a reduced daily rate of $1 will be charged for full enrollment. For schools that want to continue with flexible enrollment, the current daily rate of $1.25 will continue to be charged. Staff will monitor the enrollment and usage of UPasses through the coming academic year to make recommendations for pricing and enrollment flexibility for the new 5-year UPass contracts that will take effect August of 2023. Offering enhanced flexible terms to participating schools will allow continued school participation and allow students to maximize the access and use of the CTA services. This concludes my comments, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Chairman Silva,
Questions?
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
Chairman Silva, we're finished with questions.
May I have a lead to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. May I move to number 9, sir?
Next order of business is an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional advertising trade agreement with Bank of America for the 2022 Bank of America Chicago 13.1 and 2022 Chicago Marathon. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I present for your consideration an ordinance that permits CTA to enter into a co-promotional trade agreement with Bank of America for the 2022 Bank of America Chicago 13.1 half marathon and the 2022 Chicago Marathon and related events. The co-promotion has a trade value to Bank of America of approximately $46,000 and a trade value to CTA of about $81,500, a little over $80,000. CTA has done a co-promotion for the marathon with Bank of America or their predecessor for 21 years. The half marathon will be run for the first time this year. And we have combined the half marathon in June and the marathon in October into a single co-promotional agreement. The Bank of America will provide CTA information at their spectator guide, their participant guide, email blast to participants, and on the event websites. This will also include links to purchase fare in advance of the race through the Venture website. They have also provided booth space to the CTA at the Marathon Health and Fitness Expo, and in exchange, CTA will provide unsold car card space on a rail system and bus system. This partnership will allow CTA to reach a substantial audience of runners and spectators leading up to the marathon and over the weekend of the event. This concludes my presentation, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Is it the first time that we're doing these changes, okay, to the marathon?
So this is the first time that the half marathon is being run. It was actually scheduled to be run earlier, but due to the pandemic, had been canceled. So we're excited to have the half marathon come online. So this will be the first time for the half marathon, but it's the 21st year of the agreement with Bank of America and its predecessor banks for the marathon at large. So this is a slightly larger denomination because of the inclusion of the half marathon than what we've previously seen. But again, this has been a great partnership for us and the marathon. We get a lot of, runners riding the system during these events, particularly the marathon and now the half marathon, as well as spectators. Friends and family come out for these events and travel around on the system, to see the runners at different locations along the route. So this has been a very successful program for us in the marathon, and it's been a very good co-promotion.
And we will continue with Bank of America. Okay, we don't do an RFP for this marathon, right? I mean, we have 21 years, or we do have a little bit more commitment, okay, with Bank of America.
So Bank of America is the sponsor for the marathon, and we have nothing to do with that kind of sponsorship agreement. We do have the flexibility to enter into these types of co-promotions, which we do on a regular basis with the city for other large events, that are sponsored by DCASE or other city departments and other entities from time to time. This is really an opportunity for us to engage unused car card space on the system. And in exchange, we get to promote our services at the different events, in this case, at marathon-related events. But in other events, we get to advertise in those various events as well. So again, this is just an opportunity that is open to other type of events like this, and it's an opportunity for us to engage what would otherwise be unsold car card space and get the branding of CTA and the availability of CTA out there to a market, and particularly for the marathon. This is a very important opportunity for us because a lot of people from around the country, around the world, frankly, come into this event. So we see increased usage of passes and paper use, but passes in particular as people come in from other countries, other areas around the country, and look to buy those 3-day passes or longer to engage the system as they go around the city and see sites, as well as go to the event itself.
But the half marathon, this is the first time that it's going to.
Yes, this is the first time. Like I said, they had meant to run it, during the pandemic, but it had been canceled. So this will be the first time that the half marathon is being run, and the first time that it's being included in the co-promotion here.
Thank you. Keep it up. Good.
Yeah, we're excited.
Director Barkley?
No question.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No questions, thank you.
No further questions, Chairman Silva, on this matter.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We move to number 10, Chairman.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing a sublease to Fairpoint Development LLC, a portion of property located at 120 North Racine Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. Bill Mooney.
Good morning. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer.
Good morning, Bill.
Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing a sublease to Farpoint Development of a portion of the property located at 120 North Racine. Sterling Racine LLC has a master lease agreement for 84,879 square feet on the first and second floors of 120 North Racine. Farpoint Development LLC has subleased space on the second floor since 2017 per ordinances number 17-73 and 20-004. Proposed new sublease increases Farpoint's lease space from 5,039 square feet to 5,615 square feet. Sterling Racine will continue to be responsible for all rent and expenses as set forth in the master lease agreement, including its proportionate share of building operating expenses and all applicable taxes and utility fees. Under the terms of the master lease agreement with Sterling Racine, all amendments of the sublease require CTA approval, which cannot reasonably be withheld. I'm happy to take any questions on this item.
Silva?
No, I don't have a question.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No questions.
No further questions, Chairman Silva.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Proceed to number 11, Chairman.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an agreement and acknowledgement of easement with JRTC office owner LLC for renovation, operation, and maintenance of the Chicago Transit Authority Clark Lake Station at the former State of Illinois Center Building, Chicago, Illinois. Bill?
Thank you, Director. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an agreement and acknowledgement of an easement with JRTC Holdings LLC for the renovation, operation, and maintenance of the Clark and Lake CTA station at the former State of Illinois Center building. The CTA operates and maintains the Clark and Lake station pursuant to an easement and the state granted the CTA dated August 7th, 1984, for the purpose of operating and maintaining the rapid transit station. The state is selling a portion of the State of Illinois Center, SOIC, and is assigning their rights under the 1984 agreement and associated easement to an affiliate of the Prime Group known as JRTC Holdings. CTA has negotiated an agreement with the new owner for the CTA's continued operation of the Clark and Lake Station. The new agreement protects the CTA's rights under the 1984 agreement and provides for the continued operation of the station under existing conditions and rights in the authority's interest, as well as provides for terms around renovation and reconstruction of the building if so required. I'm happy to take any questions on this item.
I don't have a question.
Director Barkley?
No question.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No question.
There's no further questions on this matter, sir.
I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We may now proceed to number 12, Chairman.
The next order of business is the review of an ordinance consenting to the assignment of ground lease from SCG Church Street Plaza LLC to 950 Church Street Property LLC, and issuance of an estoppel certificate for property located between Church and Clark Street near the Davis Station in Evanston, Illinois. Purple Line. Bill?
Real estate staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing the consent to the assignment of a ground lease for the property located between Church and Clark Streets near Davis Station in Evanston. The CTA previously entered into a ground lease with the city of Evanston for a strip of land located between Church and Clark Streets just west of Purple Line tracks. The city of Evanston later assigned the ground lease, and the current lessee is SCG Church Street Plaza LLC. At this time, SCG Church Plaza has sold multiple properties to 900 to 950 Church Street Property LLC and is looking to assign the ground lease. The assignment will not alter the CTA's rights under the ground lease. Assignee will assume all the assigner's responsibilities under the ground lease, but additionally, the assigner will continue to be obligated under the terms of the ground lease following the assignment. Under the terms of the lease, CTA must consent to such an assignment, and such consent may not unreasonably be withheld. I'm happy to take any questions on this item.
I don't have a questions.
Director Barkley?
No question.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No questions.
There's no further questions on this matter, sir.
I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So move.
Second.
Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We may move to number 13 now, sir.
13. Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its tax increment financing funds for Western Brown Line Station and bus turnaround improvements. Bill?
Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for the tax increment financing funds for the Western Brown Line Station and bus turnaround project. Western Brown Line Station and bus turnaround project includes improvements to customer-facing elements within the station, platform, and mezzanine, upgrades to key mechanical systems, and the bus turnaround area. CTA has been approved for use of TIF funds in a total amount of $8 million to support this project, which will be made available through this intergovernmental agreement. I'm happy to take any questions on this item.
No questions.
Director Barkley?
No question.
Miller?
No questions.
Director Ortiz?
No question.
There's no further questions on this matter, sir.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We may proceed to number 14, sir.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department for Planning and Development for tax increment financing funds for design work for California Blue Line All Station Accessibility Program ASAP improvements. Bill?
Thank you. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for the tax increment financing funds for the California All Stations Accessibility Project, or ASAP. The California ASAP project will provide for the installation of 2 elevators and associated improvements to the California Station on the O'Hare branch to make the station fully accessible. CTA has been approved for the use of TIF funds to support the design phase of the project in the amount of $5,670,000, which will be made available through this intergovernmental agreement. Happy to take any questions on this item.
No questions.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Ortiz.
No question.
There's no further questions on this matter, sir.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, second by Director Ortiz. Proceed to agenda item number 15, sir.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for tax increment financing funds for 43rd Street Green Line Station Improvements Bill.
Thank you. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through the Department of Planning and Development for the use of TIF funds for the 43rd Street Green Line Station Improvements Project. The 43rd Station project includes improvements to customer-facing elements, including painting, canopy repairs, lighting, and upgrades to the signage for the station. The project will also relocate one of the exit-only staircases at the station. CTA has been approved for the use of TIF funds in a total amount of $1,983,938 to support the project, which will be made available through this intergovernmental agreement. I'm happy to take any questions on this item.
I don't have a question.
Director Barkley,
Question.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
No further, there's no questions, Chairman Silva.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We may proceed, sir, to number 16.
Next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for tax increment financing funds for track improvements to the Forest Park branch of the Blue Line. Bill.
I swear this is my last one for you today. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for the use of TIF funds for the Blue Line Forest Park Track Improvements Project. The project will replace track and associated components between Damon Avenue and Ashland Avenue and is part of a larger Phase 1 replacement project. CTA has been approved for the use of TIF funds in a total amount of $21,560,000 to support the project, which will be made available through this intergovernmental agreement. I'm happy to take any questions on this single item.
No questions.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
No further questions on this matter, sir.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We may proceed to number 17, sir.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an agreement with the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, NICTD, for preliminary engineering services for the Red Line Extension Project. Mike Connolly.
Good morning. I'm Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an agreement of preliminary engineering services with the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, commonly called NICTD. As you are aware, CTA is planning to extend the Red Line from 95th to 130th Street. The selected alignment for this 5.6-mile extension requires a bridge be built over the NICTD track. NICTD requires CTA to enter into an agreement under which NICTD or its consultants will provide preliminary engineering services to evaluate the potential impacts of our RLE project on the NICTD track. This type of agreement is common between agencies. In fact, CTA requires the same type of agreement for work which could impact CTA lines or operations. This agreement is for a maximum of $25,000, which is available in the Red Line extension budget. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
The agreements go for how long?
This is a multi-year agreement because we'll be working with them for several years on this. It is intended to cover all of the work during the buildup and lead in to this project.
Okay, thank you. No questions.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Dr. Miller,
No question.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
No further questions on this matter, sir.
May I have,
Director Silva,
yes,
just to clarify the answer to the question, they will be working with us throughout the entire engineering design phase of this project until we actually begin construction. So at this point in time, we anticipate that we're still, 2 to 3 years away from that aspect of it. So they'll be working with us the entire time.
so it will come back to the board.
No, there won't be a reason to come back to the board for this. When the project moves into the next phase where we're going to do construction and final engineering, there will be contracts we'll put in place. We'll bring those back to the board. But they will be sort of by our side during that entire process.
Okay, thank you.
So
May I have Lease to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We may now proceed to the contract, sir, starting with B1.
Our next order of business is a contract number B1, a design build contract change order.
Any questions, Chairman Silva?
I don't have a question.
Director Barkley,
No question.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
We may now proceed to contract F1, Chairman.
Our next order of business is contract number F1, recruiting services contracts. I don't have a questions.
Director Barkley,
Just curious, was there any opportunity for subcontracting opportunity for recruiting efforts under this contract?
Chairman Barkley, this is Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. We did not identify any subcontracting opportunities through our analysis.
What kind of services will be included in the contract?
Specifically, we have asked them to help us recruit for 5 positions for the technology department. We're looking for a senior network architect, senior network engineer, senior manager in technology systems, HRIS analyst 3 OAB, and a vice president of technology.
Okay. All right. No further questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Ortiz.
No questions.
No further questions on this matter, sir. We may move to contract B1.
Next order of business is contract number G1, a change order for cellular services, contract TD.
Any questions, Chairman Silva?
How many times have we changed telephone supplier providers? The cellular services, okay, are contracting. Who are we doing the business?
So good morning. This is Carolyn Gallagher, your Chief of Technology here. We are doing the business with AT&T Mobility, also with T-Mobile and Verizon Wireless. These are our local providers that have services in the area that our scope of services cover here, directors. So we put out an RFP recently to incorporate all bidders and everybody that has services in this area. And we have received bids back from those entities. But typically with telecommunications or wireless services like this, the providers are pretty much fixed. And in order to provide the volume of service that we require as a large agency with a wide range of requirements, it tends to be the larger providers who are successful in meeting all of those needs.
So there are the 3 largest, okay, are the providers, okay, that provide us?
Yes, these are the larger providers that have that sort of bench strength and bandwidth to be able to meet all of our needs. Some of our needs are life safety communications. They're on our fleet, in our bus shelter signs, and we have a large variety of those needs. And as I said, a large volume. And so the provider has to have a really strong communications network, fast, to be able to provide what we are asking for.
Okay, thank you.
Director Barkley?
Question.
No question.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Ortiz?
No questions.
There's no further questions, Chairman Silver, so we may proceed to contract J1.
Our final order of business is contract number J1, a change order for a consulting contract.
Any questions, Chairman Silva?
No, I don't have a question.
Director Barkley?
No question.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Ortiz?
No question.
There's no further questions on this matter, sir. We may proceed to 18A.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place for the 4 contracts on the omnibus?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Silva. I'm sorry, by Director Ortiz. Move to 18B, sir.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus? Recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
Motion is approved with 4 yes votes, sir. May proceed to 19.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
Motion is approved with 4 yes votes. We are adjourned. We'll be adjourned for a few minutes before we start the regular board meeting. Good morning. We are ready to begin the Chicago Transit Board regular monthly meeting of May 11th. Chairman Barkley.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for May 11th, 2022. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Yes, Director Miller.
Here.
Director Ortiz.
Here.
Director Silva.
Here.
Chairman Barkley.
Here.
Directors Irvine and Jace will not be with us today, but we have a quorum with 4 members of the board present.
I'd like to first thank everyone for their patience this morning. I know the committee meetings went on for a period of time, so just thank you for being patient with us. Our first order of business is public comment. Greg, is there any public comment?
No public comment today, sir. We did receive written submittal by John Paul Jones of the Sustainable Englewood Initiative, and I will distribute that after the board meeting.
Our next order of business is an update from the Chicago Police Department. We have with us today Commander Joseph Berg from the Public Transportation Section. As you know, last month, the board requested to have representation from the Chicago Police Department to have a dialogue with regarding safety concerns and security concerns on the system right now.
Greg, please unmute the room.
For Commander Berg at this point in the general session.
Are you asking if I have any questions?
Yes, if you have a statement that you'd like to make, or if you just want us to simply ask questions.
One, I'd just like to say that, as a commander of public transportation, I'm very happy to be here thus far. I was named commander January 18th, and it's been a very good relationship with the CTA. CTA security team and public transportation section works very closely. We communicate daily up until the hour, the minute. We're constantly talking to each other. Had an opportunity to meet with President Carter, and it was very beneficial as well. So I'm just here to, listen and show you potentially what we could do to make sure CTA is safe this summer and for the rest of for all the ridership.
Commander, how are deployment decisions made?
You can take into three. There's several factors how deployment decisions are made. One is we do look at crime statistics. Where is a crime occurring? And we'd like to deploy our resources to those locations.
Decisions made.
Another factor could be ridership. Where is the most, the stations with the most riderships? Where are the riders at? We would like to be there. I think another factor, and they're not in order. It's not a hierarchy of what's the most important. It's just considerations. The third thing would be special or sporting events around campuses, college campuses, where people need to get to certain events. We take that into consideration. We also listen to community concerns. I have conversations with aldermen and other concerns that go through the CTA board or through their safety control center, and I listen to them. And then I also listen to districts within the Chicago Police Department, their CAPS programs. They will identify certain events going on, or maybe at a CAPS meeting, someone brought up a concern about CTA station or a bus route, and we'll deploy resources. So those 5, and there are many others, but those are the 5 main ones that we consider when we're deploying resources.
I want to open it up to everyone. So if you have questions, I still have a few myself, but I want to basically make sure that we include everyone in this process.
Thank you. Yeah, my question is the visibility of your men and women on the platform. How is that doing? It seems like if there's a shortage or what, sometimes like they're missing in action.
That I would say under I don't want to say new initiative, but that is what we are really pushing now. Okay. Is that we do like riders riding the trains. We call them ride missions, where officers would ride trains, and they still do that quite often. But when officers are in a train, they're visible to that train car and that train car early. Another procedure is that we do platform missions and we line the officers up across the platform. So any incoming train comes in, you'll see officers on the platform.
Largo and Triago.
You see officers on the platform, and then the officers, when the train comes into the station, I ask the officers to enter the train, look on the train car. If they see any violations of any law, take enforcement, could be smoking on the train, other, people sleeping on the train, just check on them, well-being checks. And then they get back on the platform, and then they could hit the other train coming from the other direction. So that's a very effective manner to get the visibility out there. Second of all the officers right now are in uniform. Even when they're not in uniform, they do have their vests clearly visible, but right now they're all in police uniform.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question regarding just overall best practices. Has there been documents or research that has been done on best practices? I know as CTA and being one of the largest systems in the country, we often lead the way. But I wanted to check in if there's been any research done or any documents that have been reviewed around what other partners in other cities are doing in terms of partnerships with their police department for best practices, so we can incorporate them, and or any other analysis that we can lead to really do our best and develop best practices for ourselves, but also as leaders across the country.
Yes, I'm not sure necessarily about research of the issue, but constantly, because public transportation is a topic in many major cities now, there are new initiatives in New York, in Baltimore, and Washington, and they've been publicized in like the Washington Post, and I read those, and I've reached out to those jurisdictions and try to see what they're doing. So yes, we always monitor what the best practices are. I think a key too is a lot of the systems are a little bit different. It is also listening to our ridership, but we deal with our ridership, the people out there and where we should be, where they like to see us, when they like to see us. But yes, absolutely. It is something that I monitor. In terms of like putting something together, I haven't done that just yet.
Yeah, I think sometimes a partnership team could be helpful, whether that's, I'm sure we have great researchers around at CTA and on your team as well. So maybe some thought about collaboration around best practices could be really thoughtful and supportive. The other thing that I wanted to check in on and just welcome your thoughts is a lot of the issues that we face in our city are regarding mental health. Any partnerships or thoughts or approach to how we're co-partnering or how we can partner on that issue?
Yes, we do have an Infinity officers that work with outreach programs, and we are now developing in many of our missions with CTA, with our first providing resources, offering resources to people that are maybe suffering from emotional disturbances, but also partnering with other city agencies that are probably more equipped to handle the situation than with us. Yes, that was brought up at a recent meeting with President Carter, and other agencies have committed some resources. And I welcome the first part of yours. I do welcome all the research. Anything for the best practices, I would team up with CTA and welcome that.
Thank you.
Director Ortiz, just to further amplify on what Commander Bird is saying, we are having direct conversations with the Mayor's Office and Department of Family and Social Services about ways in which we can supplement and amplify resources on CTA that can deal with mental health and homeless issues. And we are certainly encouraged, and I know that they're going to be reaching out to the police department to see how we collaborate on those efforts and some sort of joint approach. So I would say stay tuned. I expect there's going to be more action in that area in the very near future.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the preparedness of possible event, okay, similar to the New York, okay. Is Chicago prepared, okay, to deal, okay, with an event, okay, like we saw, okay, in New York in the last 2 months?
Yes, I would say we are prepared to handle an event like that. Currently, it just started at 11 o'clock. We are doing a mobilization drill right now. It's an emergency preparedness drill that is unannounced. We do give the districts notice like the day before, just, hey, we're going to call the resources. Right now, the resources were called the 69th and the red line, and it's just emergency preparation drill to see our response time. We will give them like a preparation drill and see how they respond. And then afterwards, we ask them to ride the trains from 69th, either north a couple stations or south a couple stations for 45 minutes. But to see how quick our resources get there and to handle the situation, we do these mobilization drills. We did 2 last week, we're doing 1 tonight, and we're doing 1 Friday night. So we're constantly training to be prepared for that.
Are you comfortable, okay, that you have all the necessary elements, okay, to fulfill, okay, the events, okay, like that one or other ones, okay, that will come up?
I mean, I am comfortable. I think our police response is very good, very effective in situations like that. I spent 7 years as a member of the SWAT team. I was assistant SWAT coordinator. We train, the SWAT team trains quite often, and they prepare for those type of drills as well. So yes, I feel comfortable with the ability to respond to those incidents.
Thank you.
Greg, may I chime in for a moment?
Yes.
Okay. Commander Bird, thank you. First of all, thank you. This is Director Jakes. Thank you so much for being with us today. My question it may require a longer answer, but listening to what you were saying, that to follow up with Director Silva's question about our preparedness as it relates to there being an active shooter like it was in New York, and the training and the preparation that's taking place, God forbid that happens. Is there a different training for when it happens, when it's not someone that's doing a mass shooting, but on rail or bus who's just a may have an intended target or things of that nature? Is there different training? Is the response time different or set to be different than if there was an active shooter on rail? Hopefully my question makes sense.
Yes, I think the underlying training is very similar, especially if you're indicating like an active shooter or an individual on a bus. The officer's response is to immediately respond to the threat and then to neutralize the threat. So it could be on a bus or in a CTA platform. So the response would be the same. What I was thinking of earlier too was if it's a larger event, we might need to bring in more resources. But in terms of emergency on a bus, the district personnel should be able to respond, and they're very capable of handling that situation. Should be within seconds.
Okay, so the timing should be within seconds or no longer than maybe a couple of minutes?
Yes, because that type of call, emergency on a bus or like maybe even at a local station, would go out on the zone radio frequency. So it'd be broadcast over the zone. Then it would be also broadcast over the citywide for all available resources to respond. So that would be an all-call message right away. And it would be like the beat officer or the rapid response in the district. They should be, because we have beat integrity in that close vicinity of that incident, and they would respond initially.
Just to follow up on that question, Commander Burke, some of our bus operators are complaining that when they do press the panic button, that they don't get the kind of response time from CPD. I know we've talked a lot about the train, But what are we really doing to support our bus operators?
One of the missions that we're running as well, in addition to going on the platforms and checking the trains, are also stopping the buses and checking them with the buses, doing a bus check on the routes. We also have teamed with the traffic section in the Bureau of Counterterrorism. And sometimes when we run our missions, our traffic missions, we want to put them on bus routes where bus drivers have indicated they've had some issues, disturbance issues. So we're trying to increase the presence. It's why it's a very important to have a very good relationship with CTA and the security team, because we get that information and know what bus routes, hey, that we should be on. Also, if we get an increase in the voluntary special employment program, as officers working their days off, we would like to increase officers riding on the busiest bus routes as well.
And the response time when that panic button is pushed, where an operator says, hey, I might need some assistance here from CPD. Is CPD responsive to that?
Yes, I would have no indication that we're not, would go probably to our 911 center. I'm not sure how the number is transferred to the CPD, but if it went to our 911 center, they should broadcast that like a priority job. I could check with, President Kevin Ryan and see how it's being transferred to the police department, and then our response time. I could look into that.
Any other questions?
What is the biggest concern or problem as far as security, bus or trains? What are the biggest concerns with the officers?
I mean, right now it's just visibility and being out there for the public. And if anybody has any concerns, any questions, that an officer's there and available to assist them. I mean, the officers treat it like any other day, and they're there to serve and protect people. So we don't necessarily have concerns. We just want to be in the right spot to prevent the crimes, and it's what we're trying to ensure that the ridership feels safe when they're using CTA. And that's why we're trying to get out there more, be more visible, and be more engaged with the public.
Thank you. Any other questions at this point?
Chairman Brockman, not necessarily a question, but just an observation. And as Commander Byrd indicated, I have been in a couple of meetings with the police department, particularly very recently, one meeting in just the last week with Superintendent Brown, where we talked about, the growing concerns that I have and that, that you have expressed to me about the situation with crime on CTA. And during those conversations, the superintendent reassured me directly that it is a priority for the police department to find ways to support CTA. They view it as a priority issue. And I can tell you, as early as just yesterday, the superintendent was talking to the media, making the point about the need to particularly going into the summer, to have adequate resources on both throughout the city, but also on CTA, specifically mentioned CTA as in addition to that. So, I believe that, it's a work in progress. Commander Byrd has been very responsive to our team directly in terms of the work and collaboration we're going on between us. Obviously, I kind of refer to crime on CTA, it's almost like whack-a-mole. As you deal with it in one place, it moves someplace else, and so you're constantly, in some ways, chasing after it. But I think the real issue is, as Commander Byrd pointed out, is having the resources available to support CTA, and this is something that I really press for, and I'm pleased to hear the police department has started to do a whole lot more of that, is increasing visibility of the police officers. They're holding roll calls now at our stations. They're really amplifying their visibility on systems. I think is going to go a long way towards making our customers feel more comfortable, because they've made it very clear to us that what they want to see are uniformed police officers. You know, it's great that I'm adding security guards and, you know, expanding the eyes and ears of what's happening on CTA. But at the end of the day, police officers are what make our customers feel safe and what they keep asking to see more of.
You know, we've invested a lot of money in cameras on our system. And so, you know, in terms of CPD and the use of the footage and sharing what they feel is appropriate with the public when there's criminal activity on the system, is that something you guys could do more of?
Yes, we do. I'm just thinking in terms of if there's an open investigation, if someone has been arrested, there might be some reasons why we wouldn't release the video, but when they're seeking to identify, or we have identified an offender, absolutely. We have put out that to the public. We have used social media now. We're trying to get that out as fast as possible to identify, really seeking the assistance of the public to help us identify any of the offenders that are committing the crimes in the CTA. So we do put out stuff right now. My first thought was in case if it was an ongoing investigation or someone's under arrest, we may not release that, but definitely if we're looking for somebody or if it's provides us with information that we can share with the public to what they should be concerned about or maybe what they should look for to let us know, then yes, we should put that out. The camera system is excellent. It is excellent. It assists us greatly in the investigation and prosecution of offenders.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on?
No, I'm good right now.
Okay. Thank you, Commander Byrd. Our next order of business is approval of April minutes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of April 20th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 4 yes votes.
Our next order of business is executive session. It's my understanding, Brad, that there is an executive session today.
Yes, Chairman, there will be a closed meeting in accordance with Section 2, Paragraph C, subparagraphs 1 and 8 of the state's Open Meetings Act.
I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for the reasons stated by counsel.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
Motion is approved with 4 yes votes, and we are now recessed into executive session. Okay, we are now ready to return to open session. Chairman Barkley?
I will now entertain a motion to return to open session.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva? We are now ready to return to open.
Yes.
That motion passes with 4 yes votes. We're now back in open session.
Our next order of business is board matters. I will now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance appointing Kent Ray General Counsel of the Chicago Transit Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 4 yes votes.
Congratulations, Mr. Kent, and welcome back to CTA. We all look forward to working with you. Thank you very much. And, I think that I would also like to formally in the open session, just thank Brad Jansen, who served as interim general counsel for the past few months. Brad, thank you for your steady leadership to the law department and your guidance and support to the board during this transition period.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is a report on the Committee of Human Resources. Director Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Human Resource Committee met earlier this morning. The committee heard a presentation on the authority's hiring practice. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Miller. Our next order of business is a report of the Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Finance Audit and Budget Report. The Finance Audit and Budget Committee met earlier this morning. The committee approved the April 2022 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. The committee reviewed 14 ordinances. An ordinance adopting an amended budget for calendar year 2022, an amended financial plan for calendar years 2023 and 2024, an ordinance authorizing an amendment to a lease of retail space and license agreement for basement space and adjacent property located at 4620 North Broadway, Chicago, Illinois, Red Line. An ordinance authorizing an additional experiment university pass program agreement with the University of Illinois at Chicago UIC for certain part-time students for the fall 2022 and spring 2023 terms. An ordinance authorizing an additional experimental university pass UPass program agreement with City Colleges of Chicago for certain part-time students for the fall 2022 and spring 2023 terms. An ordinance authorizing an amendment of University Pass, UPass, to allow incentive pricing and enrollment flexibility for the 2022-2023 academic year. An ordinance authorizing a co-promotional advertising trade agreement with Bank of America for the 2022 Bank of America Chicago and 13.1 and 2022 Chicago Marathon. An ordinance authorizing a sublease of Fairpoint Development LLC of a portion of property located at 120 North Racine Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. An ordinance authorizing an agreement and acknowledgement of easement with JRTC Holdings LLC for renovation, operation, and maintenance of the Chicago Transit Authority Clark Lake Station at the former State of Illinois Center Building, Chicago, Illinois. An ordinance consenting to the assignment of a ground lease from SCG Church Street Plaza LLC to 900-950 Church Street Property LLC, an issuance of an estoppel certificate for property located between Church and Clark Street near the Davis Station in Evanston, Illinois, Purple Line. an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for tax increment financing funds for Western Brown Line Station and bus turnaround improvements, an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for tax increment financing funds for design work for California Blue Line, All Station Accessibility Program ASAP improvements, an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental development with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development of tax increment financing funds for 43rd Street Green Line Station improvements, an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for tax increment financing funds for track improvements for the Forest Park branch of the Blue Line, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District NICTD for preliminary engineering services for the Red Line Extension RLE project. The committee also reviewed 4 contracts. The committee placed the 14 ordinance and 4 contracts on the omnibus and recommended board approval of the omnibus. And that concludes my report, Chairman Barry.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
The motion is approved, sir, with 4 yes votes.
Our next order of business is the construction report. Bill Mooney.
Morning, Chairman Barclay and directors. I'm Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer with your monthly construction update. We can move ahead to our first project where we normally start our Jefferson Park to O'Hare Signals project. Since we last met, we had a pretty exciting milestone and we cut over to the new audio system out of O'Hare and are running the terminal out of the new equipment at this point. This is a huge milestone. It was one of the more major portions of the installation of the project. We are still in the process of testing and approving for service all the redundant moves and crossovers. This is really like 3 interlockings that work together. And we'll be putting the full thing in service in the upcoming month. But this was a huge milestone for us, a big effort by the team to get to this point. And we started marching towards Rosemont, the last stop on the tour. So we have 2 interlockings that work together, one on the east side of the yard and one on the west side. And we started the equipment installation there. Can we move to the pictures, please? So here's the new house being set at Rosemont West. This is the last of kind of the wayside signal houses on the project. It controls the far west side of that yard. Next slide. Here's the power being craned in to be set up for that house. And next one. Here is the local control panel. So this is where the tower person would operate out of, kind of in the position to be able to operate that interlocking from the wayside. Next slide. And similar to what you've seen on most of the other work, becomes the long effort of wiring in every wayside apparatus back to the house. So here's a series of junction boxes and the wiring being pulled through a series of duct banks and ultimately connected to the wayside devices back to the house. And here's one of the final kind of testing pieces up at O'Hare. So this is one of the switch machines that was replaced as part of the project in the subway there. Our next project is our Jackson Park Track and Structure Improvements Project. The work on the structure side has come to completion since we last met, and we continue to advance the track work. So we are now south of 61st Interlocking, moving towards 63rd Street, working kind of in the tangent area there, right before the curve, and we make our move towards Cottage Grove. So here's some of that work as we renew kind of this 60-year-old piece of track here and bringing it to state of good repair. Next slide. And here's the last of the structure work. So we had one more line cut weekend since we last met, where we replaced flanges and cross girders, and as I've shown you kind of in the previous months, had to shut down the road over 63rd Street to be able to do this work and facilitate it. So this is actually right over the intersection at King Drive. Our next project is our Irving Park Station escalator canopy replacement, which proceeds on budget and on schedule. Since we last met, we've got an escalator being installed, and it's a pretty exciting moment in this project. So we can just kind of move forward into the photos. We've also started work on the canopy. So here's the new escalator being fully installed. All the trusses and assemblies are in place, and they're starting to put in the stairs and getting it ready to start commissioning and being put in service in the near future. Next slide. Here's kind of the top portion with the skirt plate up at the top end. You can see the handrails there. This is the other side. And next slide. And so this is actually started the beginning of the canopy installation. So as the weather's broke in the spring here, they've started putting in the structural supports. These are the things with the little yellow lines showing them that tie together the old structural system for the new canopy install that will be coming in the upcoming month. And our next project is our traction power upgrades between Kedville, Edmonds, and Sacramento, which proceeds on budget and on schedule. Pretty exciting portion of this project is we got our first lineup in at Kedville. I've got a couple pictures of that equipment being flown in. So similar to what you've seen on some of these other ones, these are very large pieces of equipment. We actually have to use a crane to get them in and out of the courtyard. So here is part of the transformer for lineup number 2 being put in place. And then on the other side here is actually the connection point. So this is a brass connection to allow electricity to transmit between the 2 pieces of equipment, and they use a tension torquing bolt to register the right amount of pressure on those bolts to make sure they're secured, and the lines actually allow them to align to that right point to make sure that the bolts don't move again. Next slide. And our next project is our non-revenue vehicle maintenance. We're excited to be mobilizing on site at this point and starting our underground utility work. So here's a couple of photos to them building out their space on site. So the contractor is setting up offices in the footprint of the project right on site. So here's the mobilization of those field offices. It's a series of actually trailers that get assembled together to create a bigger footprint. And they've started to secure the site from the rest of the active operations. So the area during construction will be fully fenced in from all the other activities that go on down there along the warehouse operations. And our project coming back again this month, we talked a little bit about last month, is a refresh and renew program. So since we introduced it last month, we have completed the first series of the 28 stations. We had 3 of the 28 fully completed, a 4th one just finishing up at Chicago on the red line. We will be moving towards 35th Bronzeville, Kedzie on the brown line, Cermak Chinatown, and UIC Halstead in this upcoming month. And I'll provide you some updates on those next meeting. And we also have completed 48 of the 92 SB painting stations, starting out strong with that program again this year. And you can see the list here. I won't go through all of them. We can move on to some of the pictures of the work. So here is Addison. So we typically start the program in line with the baseball season and try and spruce up before we welcome our customers back to baseball. So here's the work at Addison on the red line. As we've done in lots of these programs, upgrading the footprint of lighting, not just in the station itself, but around the surrounding area, making the station more inviting and more secure and safe feeling as you have that bright footprint. Next slide. And here's another aspect of that kind of station on the other side. Next slide. And this is Dempster and the Skokie. So we've talked a lot about this, that we do a lot of lighting and painting improvements and those customer facing elements, but we also try and get into some true infrastructure issues. So here we, through our inspection process, identified damage to the roof at Dempster Skokie that protects that roof and make the repair as part of the program. This will keep the interior of the station dry and all those assets down there safe from water intrusion and further damage, as well as our customer experience, and really gets in front of a problem before it becomes a big issue for us. Next slide. Here's another kind of key piece of infrastructure at the station. So this is the blue tactile edge as part of the ADA features of the stations. Over time, the water and freeze-thaw cycles of the heavy winters we experience in Chicago causes a lot of damage on the tactile edge. And this is actually embedded in the concrete. So it's a pretty big effort to pull up these tiles and reset new tiles. So you can see what a big impact it is, the quality of that safety device, as well as just the general appearance and upkeep of the station. But again, really a deep-seated piece of infrastructure improvement to the station. And here's some of the examples of the painting program. So again, just amazing work and what a impact just a fresh coat of paint and some lighting does. So here is work at Central on the green line. Next slide. Here's Washington in the blue line. I really thought the stairs came out great here. I really think that makes a huge difference, and especially after a winter where we see a lot of salt and sand track through the stations, it really does a huge refresh. Next slide. And that will conclude my slides. I'm glad to take any questions at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. Questions for Mr. Mooney?
No questions.
Thank you very much. We will now call on Chris Buchel and Juan Pablo Prieto to make their RPM and diversity presentations.
Thank you, Chairman. Chris Buchel, your Chief RPM Officer. The RPM project continues on budget and tight to schedule. Next slide. So we've seen a lot of work in both segments of the project, both in RPB and in the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr modernization. In particular, in the red purple bypass, as we've completed the temp track that we showed you last month, we've started to do demolition on the adjacent tracks on the west side of the structure. So that demolition is continuing, and then we're also starting, as the demolition has progressed in some areas, we're now starting to put in the foundations and the superstructure for the new modernized structure that will come in that area. First on the tracks 1 and 2, which again is on the west side of our infrastructure, our 4-track corridor in that area. Similarly, at Lawrence to Bryn Mawr, we are continuing with that same foundation and superstructure work and the assembly of the segmented box girder. If we could go to the first slide, that would be great. So you can see here the demolition just to the left in the bottom of this slide. You can see the new temporary track that we completed and put in service. That temporary track, as you saw from some of the diagrams last month, opened up a big work area for the contractor on those westernmost tracks, sort of north of Belmont, between Belmont and south of Addison. So the contractor has been doing actively demolishing work kind of to the north of Clark. Now they're starting to do that demolition to the south of Clark as well. Next slide. So speaking of north of Clark, where we've done the demolition or had access to those tracks for a little while, you can see that the superstructure or the foundation work is starting to go. So here you've got a drilled shaft or caisson installation occurring on the north side of Clark in the red purple bypass segment. Next. Speaking of drilled shafts, we're also continuing with that activity on the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr area. This work is continuing on schedule. We're pleased to see the progress and the compliance with our various safety requirements out there. So happy to say that work is progressing on schedule. Next. And then segmented box girder. You'll notice that the lights are on. It's not a night game, but in some cases where we're crossing busy streets, it is less disruptive for us to be crossing those streets when we're doing some of the active assembly on the overnight and closing those streets. So you can see here that operation is in place at Bryn Mawr. And I can tell you a lot of the community members of Bryn Mawr are very excited to see this bridge come up and to see it's starting to span the street and getting a lot of notice by the community. So we're pleased to see that this is continuing as well. Next. And then of course our outreach. We have updates for both of our two of our most impacted wards, 44th and 48th. We have had various visioning events, and these visioning events are mostly in the 48th ward, and they are talking to the community kind of about what they expect to happen in the footprint of RPM as the project finishes in several years. So the alderman is really just sort of taking our transit-oriented design and pulling that information forward, re-informing the community, re-engaging with them on that. We're also bringing in our planning department and their strategic planning group to talk about that TOD and how it could manifest itself in various ways in that community. We've seen some art procurements that are starting. We have had our virtual office hours and good interaction with the community in those, and then various other smaller interactions with the public. All for the most part, well, some virtual, some not. The visioning event wasn't virtual, so that was a good event that we held. And with that, I'll turn it over to Juan Pablo. Good to see you back, JP.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. Please excuse my speech as I'm still recovering from jaw surgery. Diversity continues to meet with the contractor monthly to discuss PBE and workforce outreach and compliance. We continue to send out opportunities from Walsh Floor to the DVE community so they're aware of the trade packages and how to submit their bids. And Walsh Floor and their subs continue to send opportunities for workforce to the workforce partners so that the community is aware of those as well. On April 12th, we hosted an RPM workforce outreach event at Olive Harvey College, where over 60 attendees were invited to network with representatives from various trade unions, subcontractors, and workforce assist agencies involved in the RPM project. As of April 30th, DVEs have been awarded over $225 million between the design and construction packages to over 71 unique DVE firms. 27 of those are new to CTA. On the workforce side, as of April 30th, 1,441 unique individuals have worked over 707,000 labor hours and earned over $40.4 million. That concludes my portion of the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Chris or Juan Pablo?
No questions.
No question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next order of business is new business. Greg, is there any new business?
No, sir, there's not.
Since there's no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the Chicago Transit Board meeting of May 11th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Miller, second by Director Ortiz. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
The motion passed with 4 yes votes, sir. We are adjourned.
Thank you very much, everybody, for this marathon session. And thanks to the